Have you ever wondered why Nikola Tesla, the man who essentially invented the 20th century and illuminated the modern world, spent his final years obsessed with the ancient sands of Egypt? Most historians will tell you about his battles with Thomas Edison or his financial struggles with J.P. Morgan, but fewer delve into the silent, vibrating obsession that occupied the deepest recesses of his brilliant mind, the Great Pyramid of Giza. To the uninitiated, the pyramids are merely colossal tombs, monuments to the ego of dead pharaohs. But to Tesla, they were something far more profound, far more functional. He did not see a pile of rocks. He saw a machine. He saw a transmitter. He saw the ultimate manifestation of the laws of energy, frequency, and vibration carved in stone, a prehistoric power plant that utilized the earth itself as a conductor. If you look closely at the intersection of ancient geometry and Tesla's wireless theories, you begin to realize that the ancients might have understood the electromagnetic properties of the planet better than we do today. And Tesla was simply trying to reawaken that dormant technology. Tesla's fascination wasn't merely aesthetic or historical. It was deeply mathematical and resonant. He believed that the Earth was not just a rock floating in space, but a gigantic electrical generator spinning between two poles, a terrestrial battery waiting to be tapped. When he looked at the Great Pyramid, he recognized specific design choices that mirrored his own work on the Wardenclyffe Tower. It is crucial to understand that Tesla's worldview was governed by the conviction that the universe is composed of energy waves. He famously stated, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." When one analyzes the Great Pyramid through this specific lens, the structure transforms from a mausoleum into a masterpiece of harmonic resonance. The location of the pyramid itself is the first clue in this geometric mystery. It sits at the exact geographical center of the Earth's landmass, a position that minimizes the dampening of energy waves as they travel through the globe. For a man like Tesla, who was obsessed with the transmission of power without wires, this positioning was not a coincidence. It was an engineering necessity for a global wireless system. Consider the materials used in the construction. The Great Pyramid is not a random assortment of stones. It is a meticulously layered device. The inner chambers are constructed of red granite, a rock containing a high concentration of quartz crystal. As any student of physics knows, quartz possesses piezoelectric properties, meaning that when it is subjected to mechanical stress or pressure, it generates an electric charge. Surrounding this conductive core was a massive outer casing of white Tura limestone, which was polished to a mirror-like finish. Unlike the granite interior, this limestone is a high-impedance electrical insulator. In electrical terms, what the ancients built was essentially a gigantic capacitor, a device capable of storing and discharging distinct amounts of energy. Tesla recognized this configuration immediately. He understood that if you have a conductive core capable of generating charge through piezoelectricity, shielded by an insulator, and placed at a harmonic node of the Earth, you are not building a tomb, you are building a power plant. The sheer scale of this capacitor suggests a capability to manipulate electromagnetic fields on a magnitude that modern science is only just beginning to comprehend. You might be asking yourself, where did the energy come from if there were no turbines or coal fires? The answer lies in the very ground beneath your feet. Tesla theorized that the pyramid was coupled with the Earth's natural frequencies. The planet has a heartbeat, a resonant frequency known as the Schumann resonance, which vibrates between the ionosphere and the surface. Tesla discovered that by tapping into this frequency, one could theoretically pump vast amounts of energy into the Earth and retrieve it anywhere else on the globe. He believed the Great Pyramid was designed to do exactly this, to harness the telluric currents running through the subterranean aquifers beneath the Giza Plateau. The movement of water through the limestone cavities beneath the pyramid creates an electrical current through a process known as piezoelectricity. The pyramid, sitting atop this natural generator, acted as a lens, focusing and amplifying this energy, driving it upward through the granite core, vibrating the quartz, and generating a massive electromagnetic field. This connects directly to Tesla's most ambitious project, the Wardenclyffe Tower. When Tesla built Wardenclyffe, he wasn't just building a radio tower, he was building a pyramidal function in a modern form. He drove iron pipes hundreds of feet into the ground to connect with the water table, mirroring the connection the Great Pyramid had with the aquifers below. He topped his tower with a toroidal dome to accumulate charge, much like the missing gold capstone or pyramidion of the Great Pyramid was rumored to function. Tesla was essentially trying to recreate the Giza power plant on Long Island. He was attempting to turn the Earth into a tuning fork. The geometry was the key. The shape of the pyramid is the most efficient structure for spiraling energy from a wide base to a singular point, creating a vortex of electromagnetic potential. Tesla knew that geometry was not just about shape, it was about function. The specific angle of the Great Pyramid's slope, 51 degrees and 51 minutes, is not arbitrary. It encodes the values of pi and phi, the golden ratio, creating a harmonic structure that resonates with the fundamental frequencies of nature. When you analyze the king's chamber inside the pyramid, the precision is terrifying. The granite beams above the chamber are tuned to a specific musical frequency. They are not merely structural, they are resonant. If you were to strike them, they would ring like a bell. Tesla, who was incredibly sensitive to sound and vibration, so much so that he once induced an earthquake in Manhattan with a small, oscillating device, would have viewed the king's chamber as a resonance cavity. He understood that by vibrating the granite at the correct frequency, the piezoelectric effect would be maximized, ionizing the air inside the shafts. Some theories suggest that these shafts were not for ventilation, as they do not connect to the outside in a way that promotes airflow, but were instead waveguides for directing electromagnetic energy or microwaves. If the pyramid was indeed a machine, the loss of the capstone and the stripping of the outer casing stones destroyed its functionality, leaving us with only the skeletal remains of a complex energy grid. Tesla's obsession with numbers, specifically 3, 6, and 9, also finds a strange home in the geometry of Giza. He claimed these numbers held the key to the universe. When you look at the geometry of the Giza Plateau, the alignment of the three pyramids and the mathematical ratios encoded within the structures, you see a repeating pattern of these very numbers. It suggests a system of knowledge based on the fundamental laws of the universe rather than arbitrary architectural choices. Tesla felt that the ancients were not primitive stone stackers, but inheritors of a high science that recognized the Earth as an integrated circuit. He was trying to reverse engineer this lost science. He saw the pyramid as the ultimate example of wireless transmission of energy, a concept he was desperate to give to humanity. He envisioned a world where energy was free, pulled from the ether, transmitted through the ground, and available to anyone with a receiver. The pyramid was the proof of concept that had stood for thousands of years, mocking modern engineers who were still burning coal to boil water. This perspective shifts the narrative of human history. It implies that we are living in a post-apocalyptic state of scientific amnesia, where we have forgotten how to interact with the planet's natural energy grid. Tesla was the bridge between this ancient wisdom and modern physics. He didn't invent the concepts of resonance and telluric currents, he rediscovered them. When he sat in his laboratory in Colorado Springs, surrounded by artificial lightning, listening to the static of the cosmos, he was tuning into the same broadcast that the Great Pyramid was built to transmit. He was listening to the symphony of the Earth. The tragedy of Tesla is not just that he died penniless, but that he was trying to give us a technology that we were not yet ready to understand. A technology that required us to view the planet not as a resource to be consumed, but as a living energy system to be harmonized with. The Great Pyramid stands as a silent testament to this possibility, a geometric reminder that energy is everywhere, if you only know the frequency at which to tap it. To comprehend the magnitude of what Tesla saw in Giza, we must first accept a fundamental truth about our planet that standard geology often overlooks. The Earth is essentially a spherical capacitor. In electrical engineering, a capacitor is a component that stores electrical energy in an electric field. The Earth itself acts as one plate of this massive capacitor, possessing a negative charge, while the ionosphere, a layer of the atmosphere filled with energetic particles, acts as the other plate, possessing a positive charge. Between them sits the atmosphere, acting as an insulator or dielectric. Tesla realized that this system wasn't static, it was dynamic, constantly charging and discharging through lightning strikes and atmospheric shifts. However, Tesla, and likely the architects of Giza, saw a way to not just observe this energy, but to harness and manipulate it. The Great Pyramid, in this model, operates as the connecting pin, a conductive bridge designed to breach the dielectric insulator and create a controlled channel between the Earth and the sky. When Tesla built his magnifying transmitter in Colorado Springs and later the Wardenclyffe Tower, his goal was to perturb the electrical condition of the Earth. He wasn't trying to send a signal through the air like Marconi. He was trying to send a charge through the ground. This is a critical distinction that often gets lost in history books. Tesla despised the concept of Hertzian waves, what we know today as standard radio waves, because they radiate into space and lose power over distance. Instead, Tesla championed non-Hertzian or longitudinal waves, which he believed could pass through the Earth with almost zero resistance. When we apply this logic to the Great Pyramid, the structure stops looking like a monument and starts looking like a dedicated non-Hertzian transmitter. The pyramid's wide base creates a massive contact area with the Earth, maximizing the coupling with telluric currents, while the apex tapers to a singular point, driving the potential gradient skyward. It is the perfect form for mediating the tension between the ground and the ionosphere. This brings us to the mystery of the missing capstone. Historically, it is believed that the Great Pyramid was once topped with a pyramidion made of gold or electrum, a mixture of gold and silver. From an aesthetic standpoint, this would have been blindingly beautiful, reflecting the sun across the desert. But from an engineering standpoint, as Tesla would have noted, it was functional necessity. Gold is one of the best electrical conductors in existence. Placing a gold capstone on top of a granite and limestone pile essentially places a high conductivity terminal at the peak of a high voltage generator. This mirrors the design of Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower perfectly. Tesla topped his tower with a massive copper toroid, a donut-shaped metal dome. Its purpose was to hold a massive electrostatic charge. The gold capstone of the pyramid would have served the exact same function, a capacitive terminal allowing the accumulated energy from the internal piezoelectric reaction and the telluric currents to discharge into the atmosphere, or conversely, to draw charge down from the ionosphere into the global grid. The sophistication of this system implies an understanding of standing waves. In 1899, Tesla discovered that the Earth behaves like a conductor of limited dimensions. When he transmitted a powerful pulse of energy, it didn't just disappear. It traveled to the opposite side of the globe, bounced back, and returned to the source. If the timing of the pulses was perfectly synchronized with the reverberation, the energy would build upon itself, creating a standing wave of immense power. This is similar to pushing a child on a swing. If you push at the exact right moment, the swing goes higher with very little effort. Tesla calculated that to utilize this phenomenon efficiently, a transmitter had to be located at a specific nodal point on the planet's surface. The Great Pyramid's location, at 29.9792458 degrees north latitude, is strikingly precise. Not only does this number match the speed of light in meters per second, a coincidence that continues to baffle mathematicians, but the location acts as a geodetic center, a prime node for creating and manipulating these terrestrial standing waves. A transmitter placed here could theoretically ripple energy through the entire planetary body with maximum efficiency. Furthermore, we must look at the internal shafts of the pyramid, specifically those extending from the king's and queen's chambers. Mainstream archaeology labels these as air shafts, intended to allow the soul of the pharaoh to ascend to the stars. Yet, mechanically, they are bizarre. They are too narrow for a human. They were originally sealed at both ends, making them useless for air circulation, and they are aligned with extreme precision. In microwave engineering, a waveguide, is a structure that guides waves such as electromagnetic waves or sound with minimal loss of energy. If the granite chambers were resonating cavities generating high-frequency vibrations or electromagnetic fields, these shafts would act as waveguides, directing that energy out of the pyramid. Tesla used similar principles. He understood that directing energy required a focused path. If the air inside these shafts was ionized, perhaps chemically treated or influenced by the immense electromagnetic fields, it would become a plasma, turning the shafts into conductive conduits connecting the inner reaction chambers to the outer atmosphere. This technology relies heavily on the manipulation of the ionosphere. We know today that the ionosphere is a turbulent sea of electrons. Tesla referred to his method as disturbing the electric balance by shooting a beam of charged particles or high-frequency waves into this layer. One could theoretically create an artificial aurora lighting up the sky, or more practically, create a path of least resistance for energy transfer. If the Great Pyramid was indeed active, it likely created a column of ionized air above it, a visible pillar of light or energy that reached into the heavens. This visual is not just science fiction. It appears in ancient texts that describe the pyramids as beacons or columns of fire. To Tesla, these weren't myths. They were technical descriptions of the apparatus in operation. The ancients were describing the ionization of the atmosphere caused by a high-voltage discharge. The implication here is that the pyramid was a maser of sorts, microwave amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, operating on an acoustic and electromagnetic level. The energy input comes from the earth, seismic/mechanical, and the aquifer, hydraulic/electric. The granite core acts as the active medium. The chamber dimensions provide the resonant cavity, and the shafts act as the output. Tesla was trying to build the electronic version of this stone machine. He moved from mechanical resonance to electrical resonance, but the physics remained the same. He often spoke of the Earth having a pulse. He determined this pulse was around 11.78 Hertz, later refined by Schumann to 7.83 Hertz in its harmonics. The pyramid's geometry is believed by some researchers to encode the dimensions of the Earth in a scale of 1 to 43,200. If the dimensions of the structure are harmonically linked to the dimensions of the planet, then the structure essentially vibrates sympathetically with the planet. It is a tuning fork matched to the frequency of the Earth. When you view the Giza Plateau through Tesla's eyes, you stop seeing a burial ground and start seeing a motherboard. The smaller pyramids, the Sphinx, the causeways, they all resemble components in a vast integrated circuit. The Sphinx, carved from the bedrock, may have served as a monitor or a stabilizer for the geological vibrations. The underground tunnels and chambers, many of which remain unexplored or hidden from the public, could be the wiring of this system. Tesla's worldview suggests that we have been walking through the ruins of a superior technology for centuries, mistaking the machinery for monuments. We look at the casing stones and see walls. Tesla looked and saw insulators. We look at the granite and see tombs. Tesla saw crystal transducers. This technological functionality also explains why Tesla was so secretive and why he was eventually silenced. A machine that draws energy from the earth and the sky breaks the economic model of fuel. If the Great Pyramid is a blueprint for free energy, then it represents a threat to any industry reliant on scarcity. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower was demolished for scrap metal when his funding was pulled, but the Great Pyramid was too big to destroy. Instead, it was decommissioned. The capstone was removed, the casing stones were stripped, and the knowledge of its operation was allowed to fade into myth. But the geometry remains. The mathematics remain. And as long as the stone stands, the blueprint is there for anyone with the vision to see it, a vision that Nikola Tesla carried with him to his grave, convinced that humanity had once touched the stars, not with rockets, but with resonance. Imagine a world where the very air around you is charged with benign, accessible energy. You could walk into the middle of a desert, plant a rod into the ground, and attach a light device to it, watching it glow with a brilliance unmatched by modern filaments. This was the world Nikola Tesla fought to create. and it is likely the world that the architects of Giza actually lived in. When we discuss the Great Pyramid as a power plant, the immediate question arises, what did it power? We don't find wall sockets in ancient tombs, and we don't dig up power cables in the sands of Egypt. But this lack of physical wiring is exactly what validates the Tesla connection. Tesla's entire career was a crusade against the inefficiency of wires. He proved unequivocally that energy could be transmitted through the air and the ground without the need for copper cabling. In his Colorado Springs experiments, he famously illuminated bank of light bulbs placed miles away from his laboratory purely through wireless transmission. If the Great Pyramid was the generator, then the devices of that era would have been wireless receivers tuning into the ambient field created by the stone monument. This perspective forces us to re-examine the enigmatic artifacts of ancient Egypt, such as the famous reliefs at the Temple of Hathor in Dendera. Mainstream Egyptologists interpret these carvings as depictions of creation myths, symbolizing a lotus flower spawning a snake. However, to an electrical engineer, and certainly to Tesla's eyes, the relief looks undeniably like a massive Crookes tube or a modern cathode ray tube. You see a transparent bulb-like shape, inside a wavy line that resembles a snake but behaves like a filament or an ionizing discharge, and at the base, a lotus flower that looks suspiciously like a socket receiving a cable. This cable runs to a jed pillar, a symbol often associated with stability, which bears a striking resemblance to a high-voltage insulator or a capacitor stack. If the Great Pyramid was pumping massive amounts of electromagnetic energy into the local atmosphere, a handheld device like the one depicted at Dendera could theoretically glow by simply being in the vicinity of the field, much like a fluorescent tube will light up if you hold it near a high-voltage power line today. Tesla didn't invent this phenomenon. He was simply the first in modern history to scientifically master it. But the rabbit hole goes deeper when we consider the role of vibration in construction itself. One of the greatest mysteries of the Giza Plateau is not just why it was built, but how. We are talking about 2.3 million stone blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons, transported and lifted with a precision that defies our current industrial capabilities. The mainstream narrative of ropes, ramps, and thousands of slaves dragging rocks across the sand crumbles under the weight of physics and logistics. Tesla offered a different key to this lock: resonance. He famously invented a small mechanical oscillator, an electromechanical device no larger than an alarm clock. He attached it to the iron pillar of a building in Manhattan, found the resonant frequency of the structure, and nearly brought the building down, causing a localized earthquake that shattered windows and brought police running. Tesla proved that a small input of force, applied at the correct frequency, could manipulate massive objects. If vibration can destroy a building, can it also lift a stone? This brings us to the concept of acoustic levitation. We know today that sound waves can levitate small objects, droplets of water or styrofoam beads, by creating pressure traps that counteract gravity. If you scale this up, increasing the amplitude and finding the resonant frequency of the stone, the mass, it is theoretically possible to make the stone weightless. Tesla understood that gravity is not just a pulling force, it is a field that can be interacted with. He once hinted that he had discovered a way to modify the effects of gravity using electromagnetic fields. If the ancient builders possessed a mastery of sound and frequency that rivaled Tesla's, they wouldn't have needed ramps. They would have used tuning forks, chanting, or specific instruments to create a sonic environment where the stones could be maneuvered with ease. This aligns with ancient legends from around the world that speak of stones being sung into place or moving through the air at the sound of a trumpet. To a mind like Tesla's, these weren't magic spells, they were descriptions of acoustic engineering. This mastery of frequency extends to the concept of a global grid. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower was never meant to stand alone. He envisioned a network of towers stationed at specific intervals around the globe, hopping energy from one to the next, creating a world wireless system. This system would not only transmit power, but also information, documents, music, pictures, instantaneously to any point on Earth. He was essentially describing a wireless internet powered by a planetary energy grid in the year 1900. When we zoom out and look at the ancient world, we see a striking parallel. The Great Pyramid is not an isolated structure. It is the prime meridian of a global system of megalithic sites, including Stonehenge, Teotihuacan in Mexico, Machu Picchu in Peru, and Angkor Wat in Cambodia, that are aligned on specific geometric bands or ley lines. Tesla would have viewed these ley lines not as mystical paths, but as currents of telluric energy, the Earth's nervous system. Just as he planned to place his towers at nodal points to maximize efficiency, it appears the ancients placed their megaliths at the Earth's natural energy vortices. These structures are almost always built with materials high in quartz content, granite, sandstone, and are situated over underground aquifers or magnetic anomalies. From Tesla's perspective, these weren't independent temples built by disconnected civilizations. They were the substations of a prehistoric world wireless system. The Great Pyramid was likely the prime generator or the server, while the other sites acted as repeaters or capacitors, stabilizing the grid and distributing the charge globally. This suggests a civilization that was globally connected, utilizing the planet itself as a motherboard. The implications of such a system are staggering. It suggests that energy was once free, clean, and boundless. It was a public utility provided by the planet, accessed through geometric mastery. This stands in stark contrast to the energy paradigm that emerged in the 20th century, one based on scarcity, combustion, and centralized control. This is where the tragedy of Tesla's life intersects with the mystery of the pyramids. Tesla wanted to liberate humanity from the drudgery of mining and burning fuel. He wanted to hook the machinery to the very wheelwork of nature. His financiers, however, realized that you cannot put a meter on energy that is drawn from the ground anywhere on Earth. If the energy is wireless and ubiquitous, it cannot be monetized. Therefore, Wardenclyffe was defunded and destroyed. Is it possible that the Great Pyramid suffered a similar fate? Did a shift in power, a cataclysm, or a deliberate sabotage deactivate the machine? The removal of the capstone and the stripping of the casing stones effectively unplugged the Giza power plant. Without the insulation of the limestone and the conductive terminal of the capstone, the pyramid is just a pile of resonating rock leaking its energy into the air, a dormant engine waiting for a spark. Tesla's work was an attempt to hot-wire this engine again. He was trying to remind us that we don't need to burn the Earth to survive, we just need to resonate with it. Furthermore, Tesla often spoke of the physiological effects of these high-frequency fields. He believed that bathing the human body in certain electric currents could kill bacteria, stimulate the mind, and promote healing. He reportedly spent time in his laboratory under high-voltage bombardment, claiming it refreshed him and allowed him to work with little sleep. If the Great Pyramid was generating a massive field of negative ions in specific electromagnetic frequencies, it would have had a profound effect on the biology of anyone near it or inside it. It might have been a healing chamber, a place where the body's cellular vibration was realigned. The sarcophagus in the king's chamber, which is too small for a standard coffin and shows no signs of ever containing a body, might have been a place for initiation or physiological transformation, a specific point where the wave fields converged to alter the consciousness or biology of the adept. Tesla's interest in the relationship between electricity and life suggests he knew that the ultimate machine is the human body, and the ultimate power source is the one that fuels the stars. The parallels are too precise to be ignored. We have a modern genius who described the Earth as a conductor, developed wireless energy, used the numbers 3, 6, and 9, and spoke of tuning into the universe's frequencies. And we have an ancient structure located at the center of the Earth's landmass, built with piezoelectric crystals aligned to the stars and devoid of any function as a tomb. Tesla is the Rosetta Stone for understanding the Great Pyramid. He provides the scientific vocabulary to translate the silent geometry of the stones. We are not looking at the graves of kings, we are looking at the remnants of a physics we are only just beginning to reclaim. As we stand on the precipice of a new era, grappling with energy crises, climate change, and the exhaustion of natural resources, the silent silhouette of the Great Pyramid of Giza looms larger than ever before. It serves not merely as a relic of the past, but as a stark geometric accusation against our present. Nikola Tesla, in his brilliance and his tragedy, acts as the interpreter of this accusation. His life's work was a desperate attempt to show us that we are swimming in an ocean of energy, yet we are drowning in scarcity. The connection between the Serbian-American inventor and the ancient Egyptian architects reveals a timeline of human technological development that is not linear, but cyclical. We did not evolve from primitive stone stackers to sophisticated electrical engineers. Rather, it appears we have devolved from masters of planetary resonance to slaves of combustion. The wireless world Tesla promised was not a futuristic dream, it was a memory. The suppression of this technology is perhaps the most disturbing element of the entire narrative. When Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower was scrapped, it wasn't just a business failure. It was a foreclosure on the future of humanity. J.P. Morgan and the industrial titans of the day understood perfectly well that you cannot put a meter on the ether. You cannot charge a monthly fee for energy that vibrates out of the ground beneath a farmer's feet. If the Great Pyramid was indeed a free energy device, a machine that stabilized the planet's seismic activity while powering a global civilization, its decommissioning represents a similar shift in ideology. At some point in history, humanity moved from a symbiotic relationship with the Earth's energy fields to a parasitic one. We stopped tuning the planet and started mining it. The sarcophagus in the king's chamber remains empty not because grave robbers stole the body, but because there was never a body to begin with, only a void where the focal point of the energy was meant to manifest. Tesla's theories on the ether, a universal medium that permeates all space, were discarded by mainstream physics in favor of relativity. Yet the concept of the ether is essential to understanding the Giza power plant. Tesla believed that matter comes from a primary substance, the luminiferous ether, which fills all space and is acted upon by the life-giving creative force, calling into existence in never-ending cycles all things and phenomena. To him, the pyramid was a tool to structure this ether, to organize the chaotic background radiation of the universe into a coherent stream of usable power. While modern science laughs at the ether, it simultaneously struggles to explain dark energy and dark matter, which make up 95% of the universe. Perhaps they are simply different names for the same ocean of potential that Tesla tried to tap into and the ancients successfully navigated. The geometry of the pyramid, with its golden ratio proportions, might be the specific shape required to catch this energy, much like a sail catches the wind. This brings us back to the numbers 3, 6, and 9. Tesla famously said, "If you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have a key to the universe." These numbers represent a vector of oscillation that exists outside of the standard 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5 pattern found in vortex math. They represent the flux field, the higher dimensional energy that influences the physical world. The Giza Plateau is a physical manifestation of this code. From the three main pyramids to the relationships between their dimensions, the site is a hymn to these governing numbers. It is highly probable that the specific frequency required to activate the piezoelectric granite and open the dielectric bridge to the ionosphere is rooted in the interplay of these three digits. We are looking at a technology where mathematics, music, and architecture are indistinguishable from one another. To operate the machine, you didn't need a manual, you needed a melody. You needed to know the resonant hum of the universe. The implications for our future are profound. If we accept the premise that the Great Pyramid was a geomechanical power plant, we must also accept that clean, wireless, limitless energy is not only possible, but it has been done before. The blueprint is sitting there in plain sight, mocking our reliance on fossil fuels and lithium batteries. It suggests that the path forward requires a complete rethinking of what technology looks like. It isn't about smaller microchips or faster processors. It's about larger integration with the planetary body. It requires engineers to become geologists and physicists to become musicians. It requires a science that is holistic, recognizing that the Earth is not a dead rock, but a dynamic electrical component in a solar circuit. Tesla died alone in a hotel room, talking to pigeons, viewed by many as a mad scientist. But perhaps his madness was simply the frustration of a man who could hear the symphony of the universe playing, while everyone else was deaf to the music. As we stare at the stripped, silent shell of the Great Pyramid, we are left with a haunting realization. The casing stones are gone, the capstone is missing, and the inner chambers are dormant. The machine is broken. But the physics that built it remains immutable. The Earth still spins, the telluric currents still flow, and the ionosphere still holds its charge. The potential difference is still there, waiting for a conductor to bridge the gap. We have the materials. We have the mathematics. Thanks to Nikola Tesla, we even have the theory. The only thing missing is the will to abandon the systems of control that profit from scarcity. The pyramids are not tombs for the dead. They are waiting for the living to wake up. They are time capsules containing the secret of the stars, waiting for a civilization brave enough to turn the key again. Can a civilization that has forgotten how to listen to the Earth ever hope to hear the frequency required to unlock the stars? Resonant frequency mismatch detected, carrier wave amplitude null.